ID AX909. Origin, Maintenance Drone 4. Timestamp, Pre-collapse, Cycle 8. The visual feed is degraded, marred by magnetic interference from the depths, yet the scale remains terrifying. We are looking at the central column, the structural spine of VDOH-2. It pierces the inverted pyramid like a spear, anchoring the habitation rings against the crushing weight of the ocean above. Note the condensation weeping down the Titan alloy plating. The residents often claimed the city was sweating. Through the gloom, the warning strobes of the cargo lifts descend into the abyss, fading into the crushing dark of the lower tiers. The audio track captures a low, rhythmic thrumming, the heartbeat of the circulation pumps, punctuated by the groaning of metal under impossible pressure. It stands as a monument to hubris, a hollow bone holding back the sea. Archival metadata recovered from Sector 4 telemetry cache. Subject: Vanko G. The visual feed initializes with static interference before resolving into the claustrophobic curvature of a Class 4 deep suit helmet. The view is strictly first-person POV. The primary light source is the harsh sodium yellow beam of the suit's headlamp, cutting a narrow cone through the suspended particulate matter of the deep ocean. Directly in front of the viewer is the central support column. It does not look like architecture. It looks like a geological formation of rust and refusal. The surface is textured with layers of calcified barnacles and slick, dark algae. We focus on the heads-up display HUD projected onto the interior glass. It is a clutter of amber text, but the eye is drawn to the lower right quadrant, the ledger. Current balance 14.20 CR. O2 reserve 18 minutes. Consumption rate high. Auto debit active. The audio is a jarring contrast. Outside, the ocean is a crushing, muffled void. Inside the helmet, it is a factory of wet noise. Vanko's breath rattles in the microphone. In, out, in, out. With every exhalation, the O2 reserve ticks down by increments of 0.05. Scrape, hiss, scrape, hiss. The rhythm is hypnotic and desperate. Vanko is removing a patch of hard-shell barnacles. His gloved hands, stained black with grease, shake as they grip the vibrating handles of the rotary scraper. Disaster. The rotary head bites into a cluster of iron-hard mollusks fused to a structural rivet. The tool screams, a high-pitched mechanical whine that spikes the audio levels. The rotation stops. On the HUD, a red warning flashes. Motor torque critical. Vanko wrenches the tool, trying to free it. He grunts, a sharp expulsion of air. The HUD reacts instantly. Respiration spike detected. Surcharge applied. The O2 reserve drops from 17 minutes to 15 minutes in a single second. The current balance stops increasing because the work has stopped. Panic sets in. We see Vanko's reflection faintly in the glass, eyes wide, sweat beading on his forehead. He keeps pulling the trigger, but the tool only hums uselessly. He is spending life, oxygen, to solve a problem that is preventing him from earning the life he is spending. Vanko slams the casing of the scraper with his free hand. Work, you piece of The vocal modulator distorts his curse into a robotic bark. He braces his boot against the central column, a violation of safety protocol, and hauls back on the tool with his entire body weight. The HUD screams. Heart rate 140 BPM. O2 surcharge 2.5x. With a wet crunch, the barnacle cluster gives way. The tool rips free, sending a cloud of pulverized shell and black silt swirling into the headlamp's beam. Vanko slams back against the safety tether, gasping for air. He hangs there, suspended in the dark, chest heaving. The fog from his heavy breathing begins to obscure the bottom of the visor. He wipes it away with a frantic internal grimace, but the condensation is on the inside. He looks at the HUD. Current balance 14.20 CR. Greater than O2 reserve 11 minutes. The struggle cost him 4 minutes of air. He earned nothing. Slowly, shaking, Vanko raises the tool again. He presses it against the weeping lesion of the column where the barnacles were torn away. Black oil oozes from the wound in the metal, spiraling up into the water like dark smoke. He ignores the structural damage. He engages the motor. Scrape, hiss, scrape, hiss. The numbers begin to tick up again. 14.25, 14.30. Archive record 449B, Sector 4 telemetry. Subject Vanko G. ID 89K. Location Airlock 7 Gamma, Outer Shell. The visual feed cuts abruptly from the exterior void, the crushing black pressure of the ocean, to the claustrophobic intimacy of the interior helmet cam. The transition is jarring, a sudden shift from infinite silence to the deafening roar of biological panic. The lens is fouled with condensation and grime,
rendering the image in a sickly, grainy phosphor. The audio track is dominated by a single overwhelming sound, the wet, jagged rasp of Subject 89K's respiration. It is the sound of a lung pump failing, a desperate biological engine running on fumes.
Every inhalation is a struggle against the suit's scrubbers, which whine with the high-pitched protest of worn bearings. Through the smeared visor, we see 89K's hands. They are encased in bulky, pressure-rated gloves, stained black with hull grease and the necrotized algae of the deep. They are shaking violently. The hands claw at the manual override wheel of airlock 7 Gamma. The wheel, a heavy iron circle pitted with rust, refuses to turn. The hydraulic assist mechanism is sluggish, likely fouled by the freezing temperatures of the exterior current. A red warning light strobes rhythmically within the helmet, reflecting off the interior of the visor and bathing the lower half of the frame in an intermittent, blood-colored wash. It pulses in time with a harsh klaxon that only Venko can hear, the low oxygen alarm. The heads-up display flickers in the bottom right quadrant. The oxygen reserve metric is plummeting. 2.1%, 1.9%, 1.8%. Venko grunts, a guttural noise of exertion that distorts into static on the comms recording. He slams his gloved fist against the locking mechanism. The impact vibrates through the camera housing. The wheel groans, metal shearing against metal, but moves only a fraction of an inch. The cold of the deep ocean has welded the seal shut with ice and pressure. Suddenly, the static on the comms channel clears, cut through by a transmission from the station's internal PA system. The voice is synthesized, calm, and perfectly modulated, a stark contrast to the animalistic panic in the helmet. It is the voice of the Ministry of Pressure. Attention, worker. Your breath is borrowed capital. Efficiency is the only repayment. Respiration beyond allocated shift parameters is considered theft of state resources. The red light is no longer strobing. It is solid, a flatline warning. The sound of breathing changes. It stops being a gasp and becomes a shallow, rapid panting. The carbon dioxide buildup is triggering the panic reflex. The city breathes so you may serve. The ministry voice continues, indifferent to the dying man. Do not waste the city's generosity. With a final convulsive effort, Vanko throws his entire body weight against the wheel. We hear the snap of a shear pin. The wheel lurches counterclockwise. A hiss erupts, violent and loud, as the pressure equalization valve engages. The sound is like a scream, high and piercing, drowning out the ministry's propaganda. The camera shakes violently as the airlock cycles. Clouds of sublimating ice and condensed atmosphere obscure the lens. The HUD flickers and dies, rebooting as the suit connects to the station's external power coupling. For 3 seconds, there is only white noise and the gray fog of decompression. Then, the heavy inner door grinds open. The fog clears. We are looking down at the deck plates of the mudroom, the decontamination antechamber. The floor is grated steel, slick with oil and runoff. Vanko falls forward. The camera view pitches down, slamming into the grating. The impact cracks the lens slightly in the upper left corner. The sound of the suit's seal breaking is audible, a sharp hiss of depressurization. Vanko tears the helmet off, implied as the camera view spins and lands sideways on the floor. The visual is now static, staring across the floor at a pair of boots. The boots are clean, white, and terrified. But the audio captures the first unassisted breath, a deep, racking cough that expels the stale, recycled air of the suit and drags in the ozone-heavy, metallic atmosphere of VDOH-2. He is alive, but the debt remains. Archival Record 774 VAD. Subject: Exterior Maintenance, Sector 4. Entity: Vanko G. The audio telemetry for this segment is dominated by the physics of the deep, while the visual feed is grainy, corrupted by the high-pressure radiation leaking from the central column's fractures. The sonic landscape tells the true story of isolation. We hear the hydrostatic crushing weight pressing against the helmet's seals, a sound like grinding teeth. Beneath that, the city's song is a muffled, bass-heavy thrum, vibrating through the boots of subject Vanko rather than the air. He is suspended via magnetic tether on the underside of the inverted pyramid, a singular parasite clinging to the belly of a dying leviathan. Vanko is motionless for the first 12 seconds of the record. His pneumatic scraper hangs limp in his grip. He is staring into the abyss. The void surrounding VDH-2 is not empty. It is a pressurized soup of particulate matter and ancient cold. At timestamp 014, a flash of bioluminescence erupts in the middle distance. It is a jagged, staccato burst of blue light. A viper eel, indigenous to this depth, strikes a drifting cluster of necroplankton. The violence is silent to Vanko, but the visual is absolute. The larger organism consumes the smaller in a spasming contraction of muscle and light. It is the law of the drop writ in neon: consume or expire. The camera jerks. Vanko flinches, perhaps recognizing his own reflection in the brutality of the local fauna. Immediately, the external muffled roar cuts sharply to the claustrophobic, tinny interior of the suit. A harsh, rhythmic buzzer activates. It is not an oxygen warning this time. It is the nutrient injection system. A red glyph projects onto the interior of the visor, obscuring the view of the ocean. The text blinks with an aggressive, clinical indifference. The suit's biomonitors have detected a drop in Vanko's blood sugar, precipitating a tremor in his hands. Hands that belong to the guild until his quota is met. The warning is not for his health. It is a notification of declining asset efficiency. We hear Vanko's breathing hitch. A wet, hollow stomach growl is audible over the comms, amplified by the helmet's acoustics. He triggers the intake straw with his chin. A dry, sucking sound follows. The pump is empty. The hiss of the vacuum line meets only dry plastic. Empty, Vanko whispers. His voice is cracked, dehydrated. The transmission quality is poor, stripping the humanity from his tone, making him sound like just another failing servo in the machine. He looks back at the darkness where the viper eel feasted. Then he looks at the red 2% hovering over his vision. The equation balances in his mind. To refill the tube, he must finish the scrape. To finish the scrape, he must burn calories he does not have. The scraper roars to life, a jarring mechanical scream that drowns out the silence of the void. Vanko drives the tool into the barnacles of the central column with renewed, desperate violence.
He attacks the rust as if tearing meat from a bone.
The archival stream stabilizes on camera feed 4B19, located in the lower residential artery of Sector 4. The audio track is dominated by the city's song, a rhythmic, crushing thrum of high-pressure hydraulics that vibrates the lens housing, causing the image to jitter in sync with the pumps. The corridor is a throat of weeping alloy. Condensation freezes instantly upon contact with the deck plates, creating a treacherous glaze of black ice that reflects the flickering emergency lumen strips. subject 89K, Venko, stands before bulkhead 702, Foreman Hex quarters. The subject is shivering violently. The thermal overlay indicates his has-suit's internal heating element has failed. His core temperature is dropping into the hypothermic danger zone. At extrasolar Alp, Maloli attempts a smokescreen detection. He does not move to fix it. His attention is fixed on the door panel. The panel is a graveyard of notifications. A vertical stack of crimson LEDs blinks in a jagged, arrhythmic pattern. Shift missed 400. Shift missed 1,200. Mandatory report ignored. The accumulation of unacknowledged things forms a digital scar on the pristine plastic of the interface. In Hood 2, silence is not rest. Silence is usually death. But for a foreman, silence could be a trap. Down the corridor, in the murky depth of field, other figures linger. They are gray blurs against the rust. Fellow scrapers, faces obscured by rebreathers, watching. They do not approach. They are the audience for an execution.
If heck is inside, hung over, or merely cruel, 89K will be maimed for disturbing him. If the door opens to a reprimand, 89K loses his credit standing. If the door remains sealed, he freezes. 89K raises a hand. The glove is shredded at the fingertips, exposing the blackened, grease-stained skin underneath. He hovers over the manual override key. The hesitation is palpable. The fear of the hierarchy is deeply encoded. It fights the primal urge for thermal regulation. His breathing, captured on the suit telemetry, is a jagged staccato of panic. He presses the sequence, not a code. He doesn't have one, but the maintenance override for wellness check. It is a gamble that relies on the system's bureaucratic indifference. The hydraulic seals hiss.
It is the sound of a lung inflating. The heavy iron slab grinds laterally, fighting years of salt accumulation in the tracks. Darkness spills out from the quarters. Not the cold dark of the corridor, but a stagnant, warm darkness. The air that hits 89K's faceplate is visible as a sudden fogging of the glass. The temperature differential is extreme. He stands on the threshold, waiting for a blow that does not come. The room is empty. The bunk is stripped, save for a pile of soiled uniforms in the corner. 89K steps inside. The door cycles shut behind him, cutting off the deafening roar of the corridor, muffling the city's song to a dull, distant throb. The silence in the room is heavy, smelling of stale synth alcohol and unwashed bedding.
He leans his back against the closed door, sliding down until he hits the floor. The red lights of the mist shift notifications are gone, replaced by the amber glow of the internal lock engaging. He is safe. For now. File ARCHIVERECO99. Source SuitCam 89K. Location Sector 4, Sublevel 9, Central Column Maintenance Shaft. The visual feed is grainy, plagued by chromatic aberration caused by intense localized radiation or heat. The audio track is dominated by a wet, rhythmic, hissing sound, like a colossal lung puncturing and inflating over and over. It cuts through the background drone of the city's song, sharp and immediate. Subject 89K navigates a narrow crawlway. The air here is thick with a yellow fog. HUD telemetry indicates ambient temperature is 55 degrees C and rising. The walls are sweating, not the usual condensation, but a thick, viscous black fluid that slides down the rivets like crude oil. Subject emerges into a maintenance alcove abutting the central support column. The column, usually depicted in orientation vids as pristine white alloy, is unrecognizable here. The surface is ulcerated. Layers of rust have bloomed into fractal patterns, resembling dried coral or calcified bone. Directly ahead, steam jets violently from a fracture in the column's casing. But the fracture is not open. It is plugged. The camera autofocus struggles to lock onto the obstruction. Subject 89K steps closer. The servos in his knee joints whine under the strain of the heat. The obstruction is Foreman Heck, or specifically, the foreman's distinct yellow-striped has-suit. But the boundaries between the man and the machine have dissolved. The heat of the leak has not merely burned him, it has fused him. The polymer of his suit has melted, dripping like wax into the rusted fissures of the column. The metal of the column has, in turn,
seemingly grown into him. Barnacles and iron oxide blooms encroach upon the suit's chest plate, stitching the corpse to the city's spine. 89K's respiration rate spikes. Telemetry 112 BPM. The camera shutters, a violent flinch. Subject nearly loses footing on the slick grating. The leak, the source of the hissing, is coming from the foreman's helmet. Subject 89K forces himself to lean in. The camera zooms. The faceplate is compromised. A caustic bioluminescent fluid, the blood of the central column, is spraying from the fracture behind Heck, filling the suit from the back and bubbling out through the seal of the faceplate. The glass is etched and cloudy, but the interior is visible. Heck's face is gone. The corrosive fluid has dissolved the soft tissue, leaving a slurry of organic matter swirling inside the helmet like a snow globe of pink mist and white bone fragments. The pressure of the leak forces this slurry out through the chin seal, dripping onto the grating with a sound that sizzles. The rust on the column isn't just oxidation. Close-up analysis of the fusion point reveals the horrifying truth. The corrosion has a cellular structure. The city is digesting him. The biomass of the foreman is being repurposed as mortar to seal the lesion in the support beam. Subject 89K does not scream. The audio picks up a dry retching sound, a spasm of an empty stomach. Then silence, save for the wet hiss. The camera stabilizes. The framing shifts from chaotic panic to cold, steady documentation. 89K reaches out a trembling, grease-stained gloved hand and wipes the condensation from his own lens. He isn't fleeing. He is recording. He pans slowly up the fused torso, capturing the serial number on the melted shoulder pad, then down to the weeping lesion. This isn't just a tragedy, it is leverage. Recovered Archive 44-7C. Location: Sector 4. Foreman's Maintenance Niche. Environmental sensors indicate ambient temperature at 42 degrees Celsius. The air is thick with the copper taste of overheated circuitry and the sweet rot of the lesion. Subject 89K stands before the local diagnostic terminal. The screen, a heavy CRT monitor burnished with decades of static, casts a sickly green pallor over the cramped space. The terminal has completed its scan of the structural anomaly. The fracture concealed by Foreman Heck's calcified remains. The text flashes with a rhythmic, indifferent malice. Severity, critical. Integrity, 14%. Auto-upload to central administration in 060. Through the whole plating, the ocean exerts its tyranny. The groan of the deep water presses against the steel, a low-frequency vibration that rattles the teeth in 89K's skull. It is the sound of the city holding its breath. Vanko's movements are initially frantic. His grease-stained fingers fumble with the magnetic latches of his utility belt. He produces a battered isolate drive, illegal salvage, likely stripped from a defunct drone. He jams it into the terminal's auxiliary port. The screen flickers. Unauthorized peripheral detected. Override required. The countdown ticks. 0:45, 0:44. He inputs standard maintenance codes. Rejected. The system is designed to protect the hierarchy. It does not accept commands from a hull scraper. The camera angle shifts, catching 89K's reflection in the dark glass of the monitor overlay. For a moment, we see the terror. Eyes wide, sweat pooling at the collar of his suit. The look of a man expecting the purge sirens to liquidate him. Then the hull groans again, a screech of metal fatigue that mimics a dying beast. The sound seems to ground him. The reflection changes. The panic recedes, replaced by a cold, sharp geometry of thought. He stops typing. He realizes he cannot stop the signal with authority he doesn't have. He has to break the path. Venko reaches past the keyboard, fingers digging into the exposed wiring beneath the console housing. He ignores the warning sparks. He is not trying to hack the software. He is physically severing the uplink cable while bridging the data stream to his local drive. It is a crude, brutal bypass. 0:10. The screen chaotic with error artifacts. 0:5. Connection unstable. 0:2. The screen freezes. The countdown halts. A new prompt blinks in the silence. Data transfer complete. Uplink failed. Error logged locally. Venko yanks the isolate drive free. The terminal goes dark, save for a blinking amber standby light. He holds the drive, the weight of the sector's survival, and his own leverage, tightly in his palm. He does not exhale. Archival note. The following audio-visual reconstruction is derived from the suit telemetry of Unit 89-K. Audio gain has been adjusted to isolate localized mechanical inputs over the ambient structural resonance of Sector 4, 000 through 0028. The frame is dominated by the macro lens distortion of a rusty data port. The only sound in the suffocating crawl space is the rhythmic, jagged clicking of the unauthorized isolate drive. Click, pause, click. It sounds like a dying insect trapped in amber. Beside the port, the fused biomass of Foreman Heck remains static. The heat has cooked the organic components of Heck's suit into the bulkhead, turning the man into a load-bearing fixture.
Vanko's hand, trembling, not from grief, but from caloric deficit, hovers over the drive. The progress bar on his HUD is a sickly green slash in the darkness. 98%, 99%, 0028, 0115. Transfer complete. Vanko yanks the drive free. The silence that follows is immediate and crushing. Without the distraction of the data stream, the reality of the depth asserts itself. The walls of the maintenance shaft are not silent, they are screaming. Deep, resonant groans vibrate through the soles of Vanko's boots. The sound of the ocean pressing 5,000 atmospheres against compromised titanium. A rivet pops somewhere to the left, pinging off Vanko's helmet like a bullet. The structural integrity graph in the corner of the visual feed bleeds red.
The lesion behind Heck's corpse is weeping faster now. Black oil and pressurized seawater hissing through the fused flesh metal seal. The breach is widening. Vanko does not check the pulse of the foreman. The biometric scanners on Heck's rig went dark hours ago. Instead, Vanko backs away, his movements jerky, reptilian. He scrambles backward through the narrow maintenance tube, his breathing apparatus wheezing in counter-rhythm to the groaning hull. He reaches the subsector bulkhead, a heavy, manual lock circular hatch designed for containment. This is the decision point. To report the breach is to be assigned to fix it, a suicide mission. To seal the door is to hide the failure, contain the immediate pressure drop, and leave Heck's body as the only witness in the dark. Vanko grabs the iron wheel of the bulkhead. It is cold, slick with condensation and grease. He heaves. The mechanism resists, rusted by decades of neglect. Vanko grunts, a primal sound of exertion that piques the audio sensors. He throws his negligible body weight against the rotation. The wheel shrieks, metal grinding on metal, a sound that mimics a scream. Slowly, agonizingly, The heavy steel iris begins to spin shut. The aperture narrows, slicing off the view of the weeping wall and the fused corpse. Hex visor, obscured by steam, is the last thing visible before the lock engages with a final booming thud. 0345, 0330. Darkness. The immediate threat is partitioned behind 6 inches of steel. Venko leans his helmet against the closed door, vibrations traveling through his skull. He spins the locking wheel until the seals hiss, pressurizing the space on his side, depressurizing the tomb he just created. He taps the pocket where he stashed the data drive. Hex pressure logs, his leverage, his ticket to a bunk that doesn't smell of ozone and rot. 0330 to 0412. The HUD stabilizes. The red warnings fade to amber. Venko pushes off the bulkhead. He is in the vertical access shaft now. He looks up, far above, through layers of grating and murky water, the faint bioluminescence of the mid-levels glimmers, a full sky.
He begins to climb, swimming upward through the thick, humid air. His movements lighter. He has left the weight at the bottom. The clicking has stopped. The groaning is muffled. He ascends toward the lie.
Archival note. Audio track restoration required, plus 12 decibels gain to capture ambient harmonics. Playback initialized. The recording engages with a violence that distorts the visual feed into static. The sound is not a noise, it is a concussion. The 10-ton blast door of bulkhead 702 hits its magnetic locks with a finality that shakes the camera mount on Vanko's shoulder. The impact resonates through the hull plates, a deep, vibratory thud that travels up the skeleton rather than through the ears. Vanko is thrown against the opposing wall, sliding down into a heap of rusted grating. For 6 seconds, the only audio is the jagged, wet rasp of his breathing inside the helmet and the high whine of his suit's servos fighting to stabilize. Then the sound from the other side begins. It is muffled, thick, and horrifyingly organic. Through 20 inches of reinforced plasteel, the ocean's reclamation of sublevel 9 sounds like a stomach digesting a meal. There is the groan of buckling structural beams, the death rattle of Sector 4, and a faint, high-pressure hissing that might be water atomizing through microfractures, or it might be the screams of the maintenance crew trapped in the crawl space. Vanko stares at the blast door. His grease-stained hand trembles, hovering over his suit controls, but he does not open the channel. To listen is to admit liability. He scrambles upright, boots slipping on the condensation. The air in this transition lock is colder, stripped of the humid rot of the lower depths. He turns away from the destruction he initiated. Before him stands the mid-tier access gate. It is a different breed of technology, sleek, seamless, and horrifyingly clean. A Heck-class sentry drone descends from a ceiling recess. It does not rattle. It glides on silent magnetic rails. Its single optical sensor, a burning red iris, fixes on Vanko. Vanko fumbles with his pouch. He produces the dead foreman's key card. The plastic is slick with a mixture of hydraulic fluid and the calcified biomass scraped from the foreman's fused remains. It is a filthy artifact held up to a pristine god. The drone hovers. The red light scans the card. It sweeps over Vanko's trembling fingers, blackened by years of hull scraping. Beep. The sound is offensive in its purity. A single high-pitched, cheerful electronic chirp that cuts through the grim atmosphere like a scalpel. It is the sound of an elevator arriving in a luxury spire, completely divorced from the crushing death occurring 10 meters behind Vanko. Identity confirmed. Foreman Heck. Shift start logged. The synthesized voice is smooth, devoid of irony. The heavy locking mechanisms of the mid-tier gate disengage, not with a thud, but with a pneumatic hiss of sweet, scrubbed air. The panels slide open. White light spills out. It is blinding, sterilized, hospital-grade illumination that washes out the grain of the recording. It reveals the grime on Vanko's suit in high definition. He shields his eyes, the glare stinging pupils adapted to the dark. The corridor ahead is white, silent, and empty. He takes a step. His heavy magnetic boot crosses the threshold, leaving a single muddy footprint on the pristine white deck. Archive log 89K final. Sector 4, Foreman Quarters. The footage is grainy, degraded by the high radiation bursts that accompanied the Sector 4 collapse. But the image stabilizes into a static, low-angle feed. It is a security perspective, likely a hidden compliance cam located near the floor vent, looking up at the bunk. The room is silent. The cataclysmic alarms that defined the previous 3 hours of footage have been severed. The only audio is the deep sub-bass thrum of the central column vibrating through the deck plating. The city's song, heavy and rhythmic, like a dying heartbeat. And the recyclers, the wet, sucking sound of the air filtration system pulling moisture from the room. Subject 89K, Vanko, sits on the edge of the mattress.
It is a foreman's mattress, real memory foam, not the standard issue wire mesh of the worker pens. He is still wearing the bottom half of his has-suit, the yellow fabric stained black with hull grease and splattered with a darker viscous fluid that has begun to dry on his thighs. He is shirtless. His rib cage presses against his pale skin like the frame of a derelict ship. He is shivering, not from cold, but from the crash of adrenaline leaving his system. In his hands he holds a foil packet, silver, reflective, officer-grade protein synthesis, a luxury forbidden to hull scrapers. He stares at the packet for 18 seconds. He does not blink. His eyes are wide, the pupils dilated, fixed on nothing. The silence stretches, heavy and suffocating. Then movement, a sudden, violent tear.
The foil rips. The sound is sharp, piercing the ambient hum like a gunshot. Vanko brings the nutrient block to his mouth. He does not eat with dignity. He eats with the desperation of an organism that has forgotten it has a soul. He bites down. The audio pickups captures the wet, sticky sound of mastication. It is a gross biological noise, saliva mixing with compressed soy and algae paste. Chew, swallow, gasp for air. Chew. He freezes. A chunk of the nutrient block is halfway to his mouth. His gaze shifts downward to the floor, just out of the camera's frame. There is something there. The geometry of his eyeline suggests a body. The previous occupant, the obstacle he removed to claim this silence. Vanko's jaw stops moving. His throat bobs. For a moment, the conflict is visible in the micro-expressions of his face. The nausea of realization, the weight of the cooling corpse a meter away from his feet. The biological imperative wars with the psychological trauma. The pause lasts 4 seconds. Then the hunger wins. Vanko shoves the rest of the block into his mouth. He chews harder now, faster, aggressive. He swallows the guilt with the paste. He wipes his mouth with a grease-stained hand, smearing the black oil across his lips. He leans back onto the foreman's mattress. He stares up at the ceiling, his chest heaving. He is full. He is warm. He is alive. The feed cuts to black. Stream integrity critical. The neurofilm degrades rapidly at this depth. The emulsion eaten by the magnetic anomalies radiating from the lower strata. We observe the final frames, a descent into absolute black, punctuated only by the